Hello friends, welcome back to i-TUTOR NCERT series. Today we are going to discuss Class 10 Geography NCERT Chapter 2 Forest and Wildlife Resources. We share this planet with millions of other living beings, starting from microorganisms and bacteria, lichens to banyan trees, elephants and blue whales. So there are millions of living beings. Now, this entire habitat that we live in has immense biodiversity. We humans, along with all living organisms, form a complex web of ecological system in which we are only a part and very much depends on this system for our own existence. So every organism in this ecological system, they are interdependent. Okay, so they are dependent each other. For example, the plants, animals, and microorganisms recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the soil that produces our food, without which we cannot survive. Forests play a key role in the ecological system as they are also the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. So it's an introduction. This is an introduce about this chapter. Okay, it's an introduction, and it says about the ecological system and the dependence, okay, between humans and other animals. Okay, so everybody or every individual or every being in the ecological system or ecology is interdependent each other. Okay, now moving forward, flora and fauna in India. India is one of the world's richest countries in terms of its vast array of biological diversity and has nearly 8% of the total number of species in the world, that is estimated to be 1.6 million. This is possibly twice or thrice the number yet to be discovered. Okay, so there are many more are yet to be discovered. These diverse flora and fauna are so well integrated in our daily life that we take these for granted. But lately, they are under great stress mainly due to insensitivity of our environment. Some estimates suggest that at least 10% of India's recorded wild flora and 20% of the mammals are on the threatened list. Okay, so there are many organisms or there are many flora and fauna in our India, but most of them are the 10% of flora and 20% of the flora are under the threatened list. Okay, many of these would now be categorized as critical, that is on the verge of extinction, like the cheetah, pink-headed duck, mountain quail, forest spotted owlet, and plants like Maduka insanis, that is a wild variety of mahua, and Hubardia heptaneuron, that is a species of grass. Okay, so these are already extincted. Okay, that means we cannot see this now. Okay, in fact, no one can say how many species may have already been lost. Okay, so we lost many species. That means almost 10% of India's recorded wild flora and 20% of fauna are under threatened list, and many of them are categorized as critical, and many of them already extincted, that is the cheetah, pink-headed duck, mountain quail, etc. Now understand the different categories of existing plants and animal species based on the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. Okay, so that is called IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. We classify as follow. Okay, so we classify the existing plants and animal species as below. First one is normal species. That is species whose population levels are considered to be normal. Okay, so the species population level are considered to be normal for the survival, such as cattle, sal, pine, rodents, etc. So these are called normal species. Okay, so there is no problem, their population level are normal. So that's why they are known as normal species. Now second one is endangered species. These are species which are in danger of extinction. Okay, so these are in danger of extinction. The survival of such species is difficult if the negative factors that have led to a decline in the population continue to operate. Okay, so if the negative factor still existing, okay, still continue to operate, okay, if the negative factor still continue to operate, then what happened? The survival is very difficult. The example of such species are black buck, crocodile, Indian wild ass, Indian rhino, lion-tailed macaque, Shanghai, that is bro and deer in Manipur. Okay, so these are under the endangered species. These are classified as endangered species. Now, the third one is vulnerable species. These are species whose population has declined to levels from where it is likely to move into the endangered category. Okay, so these species, they may be going to the endangered species, okay, endangered category if the negative factors continue to operate. Okay, if the negative factor continue to operate, then what happened? These species may went into endangered species. Okay, examples are blue sheep. Okay. As of now, the Asiatic elephant and the Gangetic dolphins are considered as endangered species. Okay, because the negative factors for their survival is increasing, and they became now considered as endangered species. Okay. Now, next one is a rare species. Okay, as the name denotes, these species with a small population may move into endangered or vulnerable category if the negative factors affected them continue to operate. Okay, so these species may be moved to the endangered. Okay, that is this category, endangered or vulnerable. Okay, these species may move to vulnerable or endangered category if the negative factors continue to affect them. Example: Himalayan brown bear, wild Asiatic buffalo, desert fox, and hornbill. Okay, so these are examples of rare species. So we first we discussed about normal species, then endangered species, vulnerable species, now rare species. Next one is endemic species. Endemic species. These are species which are only found in some particular areas. Okay, so which are only found in some particular areas, usually isolated by nature or geographical barriers. Okay, so these animals or these species can be seen only in a particular areas. Example: Andaman teal, Nicobar pigeon, Andaman wild pig, Mithun in Arunachal Pradesh. So these are the animals, or these are the species only seen in a particular area or particular space. Okay, place. So that is endemic species. Now, extinct species. These are species which are known only after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. Okay, so that is, these are not found after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. A species may be extinct from a local area, region, country, continent, or the entire earth. Okay, so the species may be extinct from the local area, or maybe a region, or maybe a country, or the continent, or an entire earth. So example for that is Asiatic cheetah and pink-head duck. Okay, so these are extincted species. Okay, they are already extincted. Now, the greatest damage inflicted on Indian forests was during the colonial period due to the expansion of the railways, agriculture, commercial and scientific forestry and mining activities. Even after independence, agriculture expansion continues to be one of the major causes of depletion of forest resources. Between 1951 and 1980, according to the Forest Survey of India, over 26,200 square kilometers of forest area are converted into agricultural land. Okay, so between 1951 and 1980, there is 26,200 kilometer. Okay, that's a big area. So that much square kilometer area are converted, or a forest are converted into agricultural land. Substantial parts of the tribal belts, especially in the northeastern and central India, have been deforested or degraded by shifting cultivation, that is jump cultivation. That's a type of slash and burn agriculture. Okay, so many part of the India, especially in the tribal belts, that is in northeastern or central India, and they have been deforested or degraded, okay, by the shifting cultivation. Now, large-scale development projects have also contributed significantly to the loss of forest. Since 1951, over 5,000 square kilometers of forest was cleared for River Valley project. Okay, so 5,000 square kilometers of forest they clear for the river valley projects. Clearing of forest is still continuing with the projects like the Narmada Sagar project in Madhya Pradesh, which would inundate 40,000 hectares of forest. Mining is another important factor behind the deforestation. The Buksa Tiger Reserve in West Bengal is seriously threatened by the ongoing dolomite mining. Okay, so the next problem is mining. Mining is also a big factor which causes for the deforestation. So first one is there is agriculture. Okay, the land is converted to agriculture. Then a large projects like river valley projects. Then mining. So these all are causing for the deforestation. It has disturbed natural habitat of many species and blocked the migration route of several others, including the great Indian elephant. Okay, so this caused many problems, including the migratory species also. Now, many foresters and environmentalists hold the view that the greatest degrading factor behind the depletion of forest resources are grazing and fuel wood collection. Though there may be some substance in their argument, yet the fact remains that the substantial part of the fuel fodder demand is met by lopping rather than by felling entire trees. The forest ecosystems are repositories of some of the country's most vulnerable forest products, minerals, and other resources that meet the demands of the rapidly expanding industrial urban economy. These protected areas thus mean different things to different people, and there is lies the fertile grounds for conflict. The habitat destruction, hunting, poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, and forest fires are factors which have led to the decline of India's biodiversity. So these are some factors which cause for the decline of India's biodiversity. What are they? The habitat destruction, hunting, poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, and poisoning and forest fires are factors of the biodiversity losses or biodiversity decline. Other important causes of environmental destruction are unequal access, inequitable consumption consumption of resources, and differential sharing of responsibility for environmental well-being. Overpopulation in third world countries is often cited as the cause of environmental degradation. However, an average American consumes 40 times more resources than an average Somalian. Okay, so we know that the consumption of every people are or every individual are not same. Okay, an average American consume 40 times more resources than the average Somalian. Okay. Similarly, the richest 5% of Indian society probably cause more ecological damage. Okay, so the 5% richest society is causing more ecological damage because of the amount they consume than the poor 25%. Okay, so they consume more resources than the poor. The former shares minimum responsibilities for environmental well-being, and also the richest people they only share some kind of very less or very minimum responsibility for the environmental well-being. The destruction of forest and wildlife is not just a biological issue. The biological loss is strongly correlated with the loss of cultural diversity. Such losses have increasingly marginalized and impoverished many indigenous and other forest-dependent communities who directly depend on various components of the forest and wildlife for food, drink, medicine, culture, spirituality, etc. Within the poor, women are affected more than men. Okay, so in this poor category, women are more affected than the men. In many societies, women bear a major responsibility of collection of fuel, food, water, and other basic substances needed. As these resources are depleted, the drudgery of women increases, and sometimes they have to walk for more than 10 kilometers to collect these resources. Okay, so they may be or they have to walk 10 kilometers for collect water or other resources. This causes serious health problems of women and negligence of home and children because of the increased hours of work, which often has serious social implications. The indirect impact of degradation such as severe drought or deforestation induced floods, etc. also hit the poor the hardest. Okay, so everything happened is hit the poor in hardest form. Poverty in these cases is a direct outcome of environmental destruction. Therefore, forest and wildlife are vital to quality of life and environment in the subcontinent. It is imperative to adapt to sound forest and wildlife conservation strategies. So, next one is, okay, here look at this, the Himalayan yew in trouble. The Himalayan yew, that is Taxus valenciana, is a medicinal plant that's found in various parts of Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh. A chemical compound called taxol is extracted from the bark, needles, twigs, and roots of these trees, and it has been successfully used to treat some cancers. The drug is now in being biggest selling anti-cancer drug in the world. The species is under great threat due to overexploitation. In the last 1 decade, thousands of yew plants have dried up in various parts of Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so the yew plant is very helpful for the chemical compound taxol extracted from the yew plant is very helpful for the cancer treatment. So that's why its use is its over exploitation of this plant is very high in Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh regions. Okay, so that's about yew. Now, moving forward, conservation of forest and wildlife in India. Conservation in the background of rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry has become essential. We know it's essential to conserve our wildlife and forest. But why do we need to conserve our forest and wildlife? Do you know why should we conserve our forest and wildlife? The conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support system, that is water, air and soil. Okay, so we know if you want to live, we need life support systems like water, air and soil. So it is essential to conserve the things, that is the water, air and soil, etc. It also preserves the genetic diversity of plant and animals for better growth of species and breeding. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crop varieties. Fisheries too are heavily dependent on maintenance of aquatic biodiversity. Moving forward, in the 1960s and 1970s, conservationists demanded a national wildlife protection program. So that is the Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So the Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972 with various provisions for protecting habitats. An All India list of protected species was also published. The thrust of the program was towards protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, giving legal protection to their habitats, and restricting trade in wildlife. Okay, so in 1960s and 1970s, many conservationists demand National Wildlife Protection Program, and by that way, the Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972 that was implemented, and with various provisions for protecting habitats. And the thrust of the program was towards protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by, first one, banning hunting, then giving legal protection to their habitats, and restricting trade in wildlife. Subsequently, central and many state governments established national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, about which you have already studied. Okay, so we know about the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. We already studied about that. So that is the effects of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now, the central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which were gravely threatened, including the tiger, the horned rhinoceros, the Kashmir stag or hangul, and 3 types of crocodiles, that is freshwater crocodile, saltwater crocodile and gharial. Okay, then the Asiatic lion and others. Okay, so these are some the government announced or government put forward some projects for protecting special animals like the Project Tiger, Project Elephant, etc. Most recently, the Indian elephant, black buck, the great Indian bustard, and the snow leopard, etc. have been given full or partial legal protection against hunting and trade throughout the India. Okay, so recently the Indian elephant, black buck, that is Chinkara, the great Indian bustard, that is Godawan, then snow leopard, etc. have been given full or partial legal protection against hunting and trade, okay, throughout India. Now, did you heard about Project Tiger? The Project Tiger is one of the key wildlife species in the faunal web. In 1973, the authorities realized that the tiger population had dwindled to 18,827. Okay, 1827 from an estimated 55,000. Okay, so look at this difference from 55,000 to 1827. The major threats to tiger population are numerous, such as poaching for trade, shrinking habitat, depletion of prey-based species, growing human population. So these are the major reasons for declining of tiger population. The trade of tiger skin and the use of their bones in traditional medicines, especially in the Asian countries, left the tiger population on the verge of extinction. So these are other factors like the trade of tiger skin and the use of their bones in traditional medicines, then especially in the Asian countries. This also may it cause the extinction of tiger. Since India and Nepal provide habitat to about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population in the world, these two nations become prime targets for poaching and illegal trading. The Project Tiger, one of the well-published wildlife campaigns in the world, was launched in 1973. Initially, it showed success as the tiger population went up to 4,002 in 1985 and 4,334 in 1989. But in 1993, the population of the tiger had dropped to 3,600. There are 27 tiger reserves in India covering an area of 37,761 square kilometer square kilometer. Tiger conservation has been viewed only once as an effort to save endangered species, but with equal importance as a means of preserving biotypes of sizable magnitude. Corbett National Park in Uttaranchal, that is Uttarakhand, and Sundarbans National Park in West Bengal, Bandhagar National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Sarishka Wildlife Sanctuary in Rajasthan, Manas Tiger Reserve in Assam, and Periyar Tiger Reserve in Kerala are some of the tiger reserves of India. So these are some of the tiger reserve, that is Corbett, Sundarbans, then Bandhagar, Sarishka, Manas, and Periyar. So these are some of the tiger reserves in India. So that is Project Tiger. Now, the conservation projects are now focusing on biodiversity rather than on a few of its components. There is now a more intensive research for different conservation measures. Increasingly, even insects are being to find a place in conservation planning. In the notification under Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundred of butterflies, moths, beetles, and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. So, according to the Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundreds of butterflies, moths, beetles, and one dragonfly have been added to the protected species. In 1991, for the first time, plants were also added to the list, starting with 6 species. Okay, so in 1991, for the first time, plants were also added to the list. Now, types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. Even if we want to conserve our vast forest and wildlife resources, it is rather difficult to manage, control, and regulate them. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by government through the forest department or other government departments. These are classified under the following categories. So, the forest can be categorized as first one, reserved forest. More than half of the total forest land has been declared reserve forest. Reserved forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Okay, so reserve forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Okay, so forest and wildlife resources. So second one is protected forest. Almost 1/3 of the total forest area is protected forest, as declined by the forest department. the forest land are protected from any further depletion. So these forest land are protected from any further depletion. Next one is unclassed forest. These are other forests and wastelands belonging to both the government and private individuals and communities. Okay, so these are other forests and wastelands belong to both government and private individuals and other communities. Now, reserved and protected forests are also referred as the permanent forest estates, maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest produce for the protective reason. So the reserve and protected forest means they are permanent forests and they are maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest produces, and also they are protective reasons. Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under permanent forest, constituting 75% of its total forest area. Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, and Maharashtra have a large percentage of reserved forest of its total forest area, whereas Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Orissa, and Rajasthan have a bulk of it under protected forest. All northeastern states and parts of Gujarat have a very high percentage of their forest as an unclassed forest managed by local communities. So, in northeastern states and Gujarat have a very high percentage of forest that is classified as an unclassed forest. Okay, and they are managed by local communities. Now, community and conservation. Conservation strategies are not new in our country. We often ignore that in India, forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. In some areas of India, local communities are struggling to conserve these habitats along with government officials, recognizing that only this will secure their own long-term livelihood. In Satiskar Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villages have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. In many areas, villages themselves are protecting habitat and explicitly rejecting government involvement. Okay, so many people or many villages are also try to protect the habitat. Inhabitants of 5 villages in Alwar district of Rajasthan have declared 1,200 hectares of forest as the Bhairodev Dakav Sonchuri. Okay, Bhairodev Dakav, that is Sonchuri, declared their own set of rules and regulations which do not allow hunting and are protected the wildlife against any outside encroachment. Now, the famous Chipko movement in Himalaya has not only successfully resisted deforestation in several areas, but has also shown that community afforestation with indigenous species can be enormously successful. So, have you heard about the Chipko movement? Okay, just try to understand what is Chipko movement. Now, attempts to revive the traditional conservation methods or developing new methods of ecological farming are now widespread. Farmers and citizens groups like the Beej Bajao Andolan in Tehri and now Dhania have shown that adequate levels of diversified crop production without the use of synthetic chemicals are possibly and ecologically viable. So these are some initiatives, that is Beej Bajao Andolan in Tehri and now Dhania. These are some initiatives by the farmers. Okay, they are very they are synthetic chemicals and are without use of synthetic chemicals and the possible of economic viable for the environment. In India, Joint Forest Management, that is JFM, this program furnishes a good example for involving local communities in the management and the restoration of degraded forests. So that is the Joint Forest Management, that is conservation of forests with the involving of local communities. The program has been in formal existence since 1988 when the state of Orissa passed the first resolution for joint forest management. So Orissa is the first state to pass this resolution. Joint forest management depends on the formation of local, that is village, institutions that undertake protection activities mostly on degraded forest land managed by the forest department. In return, the members of the communities are entitled to intermediary benefits like non-timber forest producers and share in the timber harvestry by successful protection. Okay. So, in return, the members of these communities get what benefits they get non-timber forest produces and a share in the timber harvesting. Okay. Now, the clear lesson from the dynamics of both environmental destruction and reconstruction in India is that local communities everywhere have to be involved in some kind of natural resources management. But there is still a long way to go before local communities are at the center stage in decision making. Accept only those economic or developmental activities that are people centric, environment friendly, and economically rewarding. Okay, so that's about this chapter. There is a famous quote by Gautam Buddha. The tree is a peculiar organism of unlimited kindness and benevolence and makes no demand for its sustenance and extends generously the products of its life activity. It affords protection to all beings, offering shade even to the axemen who destroy it. Okay, so it also provides protection even to the axemen who destroy it. Okay, so that's the importance of trees and forest. Okay, so that's about this chapter. If you have any doubts, you can comment below. For more videos, do like, share, subscribe.